Hey everybody, welcome back to Dead Reckoning, Above the Paygrade. I'm Jay Friesen with the smart one in the room, Dr. Brian Mattson, and the other smart one in the room, Dr. Jason Wade
We have on
Barrie.
the show today our very own physician of the soul, ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Dr. Jason W. Barrie. You might recognize him. He actually made an appearance on our show in season 1 over the Easter weekend. So it's great to have you back, Jason.
Season 1, yeah.
Thanks,
nice
guys.
to be here.
Thank you. Great to be back with you.
So, Jason, there's so many issues that come up in a marriage. And in this case, there's a topic that's always kind of fascinated me.
Jay is about to, folks, Jay is about to say, Jason, I have this friend.
No,
I have this
is all about me.
Who has this marriage issue that I want to ask you about. Yeah, we see right through you,
Nope,
buddy.
this is all about me. It's all about me.
All right.
So there's one topic I've been fascinated about, and in certain contemporary modern day scenarios, you may not have you've heard the term idol. Most of the time, it's a reference to the iPhone,
or American Idol,
or American Idol. Well, it's an idol is essentially something you worship, and we don't think about idolatry in context of our marriages. And I think back to my friend named Jay, nice guy, wonderful wife, named Molly. And recently they've had a little bit of marital conflict because Jay really loves going out to eat. Molly does not like going out to eat. To her, a nice day is a nice evening is.
dinner at home,
like Brian and his wife Tara. So I really enjoy doing this, but she doesn't want to, and it makes me mad, Jason. Like I get angry. It seems like the silliest thing to get angry over, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like all I want to do is go out to eat.
Those little things.
She needs to now listen. Hear me out.
We're hearing you
She
out.
needs to meet my needs. If I feel like this is something that is
important to you,
me,
yeah.
She needs to participate and kind of sacrifice of herself. So. I can
make you happy.
I can feel like we can connect.
Isn't marriage
We
about
feel
our
like,
happiness,
I'm
Jason?
trying to connect, Jason. I'm trying to connect. What's going on there?
Wow. I would tell your friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, you're asking great questions, Jay. Let me just say that right up front. Second, let me say, as much as we joke about I have a friend who struggles like this, I just appreciate your transparency. The truth is, all three of us can completely relate to the scenario that you have just described.
Well, speak for yourselves, guys.
I was gonna say I don't know, Brian.
And if we're honest,
Yeah. Right.
and if we're honest, we also acknowledge that kind of the answers that the world is giving us aren't satisfactory. Because that's kind of what we're hearing is marriage should satisfy your needs. And being a good husband or being a good wife is about identifying those needs and meeting them. And when the rubber meets the road, we begin to realize we can never do that. And that's why we end up angry, because our spouse will never, I don't use that word very often.
Yeah, that's a big word.
That is a big word. But I dare say this, your spouse, my spouse, our spouses, will never satisfy our deepest longing. And 99.9% of marriage conflict is rooted in a failure to understand that. We take something that God intended for good, for companionship, for procreation, and for His glory, and we co-opt it for our own purposes, our own happiness, our own glory. We want our own satisfaction, and we seek it at all costs. Our spouse can never meet that obligation, and therefore we find ourselves not first angry. Watch this.
Okay.
What's going on behind Jay's anger? Because there's something that comes before that, isn't it?
What? I don't know. Tell me.
What's our show?
I've been
I like
doing this
this.
show for a long time, and I'll tell you, the
like
first response is generally anger.
Good.
Guys got Tourette's syndrome half the time, man. I'm telling you.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? I'm not getting what I want, so I'm angry. But if we trace it back a little bit, right? If we trace back the power cords, just like you guys were doing, plugging in all these microphone cords. If we trace it back a little bit, we realize that it begins with, I have a standard. And Jay, you started to say this with your perfectly innocuous desire to go out to eat a
Yeah,
lot.
what's wrong with that?
Totally
Yeah.
reasonable, right? It seems
Right.
so legit. You see what's happening there is even as you're describing that desire, you're simultaneously justifying it. You're simultaneously making it legit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Everyone wants to go out to eat, right? Of
Right,
course they
right.
do.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with
Nothing's
that?
wrong with that. That's that meets a standard.
Well, except
right.
you. You don't want to go out to eat.
That's
You never
no,
want to
I don't. I actually prefer to stay home, but go ahead.
I do like to go out to eat, obviously.
But you're wearing black. Nobody can see that.
There
so.
you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So, okay, so we're tracing this back.
We're
He's
tracing
justifying
back.
it, right?
We're saying anger's not first, but there's something before it, and that's this self-justification. We've taken marriage that God intended for good and His glory, and we've made it about our own good and our own glory and our own selfish interests. And we make those interests sound really legit. Like, come on, everyone wants to go out to eat, just like you did. The next step in this process is kind of the how do I respond when I don't get it? I feel pity. Again, self-pity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you probably never do your face
Interesting how it's
like
all
that.
revolving around the self. here,
Notice
right?
there is
Well, no,
a theme.
I'm going to say something about that in a second.
There is
Go
a
ahead.
theme. So it starts with self-justification. Next, we see this self-pity. And that's really where my anger comes from. So behind it, when we're frustrated with our wives, behind it is that I have a legitimate desire. She is not meeting it. And therefore, I am angry.
I'm
Not
getting
on-
a raw deal here.
I'm getting a raw deal. I'm getting a bum deal. If only I had a wife who ... And for the wives, if only I had a husband who ... And this is why, again, think about the way marriage has been turned upside down. God intended it for His glory. We make it about our glory. And instead of His glory being accomplished, instead of His glory being manifest in it, we find it a place of incredible conflict. And if we're honest,
two people vying to be gods,
Absolutely.
trying
See,
to
and
be in a
that
relationship.
brings
right?
up the idolatry then is coming into play where I'm idolizing essentially myself.
yeah, let's unpack that word, okay? We say idolatry a lot, right?
Well,
Something
in
you
our
worship.
circles we do, but I mean, our viewers,
Something
I mean,
you worship.
maybe they think idolatry is something like, what is that, like the ancient...
Babylonians did it.
yeah,
I
ancient
think of like
Israelites,
I think of
maybe.
like golden calf. I think of
They had
little
like
wooden,
idols in
little
the
wooden
movie 300.
statues.
Yeah, right.
But we're using that language rightly, Jay. You're using that language to say there are things that we make to be gods. And just as I was saying, we can make these desires to be gods. And then we worship them falsely and justify our desire, and we become very angry.
Well, we sacrifice things to them, right? We slay things to them.
I think we slay
Like, oh, if you're
relationships.
in my way and you're getting in my way
Of what I-
getting this thing, I'm sorry that I have to sacrifice you to my God. Throw you in the volcano,
Absolutely.
right? Isn't that what we do?
Absolutely. We see that pattern over and over again, especially in the marriage relationship.
Right.
This place of beauty, this place of intimacy, this relationship that is intended for so much good, we make it a wasteland where we pummel each other because we're not delivering.
Oh, wow.
That's the bad news.
Oh, yeah, what's the hope?
Right,
Jay,
that's
I
the
mean,
bad
really,
news.
how-
But let's
what do you
not
do?
forget, the cool thing about it is those closest relationships, they reveal our heart. They show us what's really going on, what's really most important to us. And when we can be honest and say, all of us, right? I'm a marriage counselor. I do this for a living.
Right.
And I am the friend of Jay's. I am the guy who makes my own desires to be ultimate. And I sacrifice my wife, just like Brian said. I'm bitter. I'm angry. I'm not the kind of guy that I want to be. So when we can be honest like that and acknowledge that all of us are broken, all of us have these distorted desires, we're set up to hear some good news. That the justification that we're looking for in our spouse can be found in the living God. That there is a God who justifies sinners. Let's say that again. There is a God who takes people who are naturally prone to idolatry and changes their course. He gives them new hearts. He helps them worship rightly. And then when I'm worshiping rightly, right, when I'm finding my justification in the only place in the universe that I really can be justified, then I can look at these things differently, right? I mean, let's circle back and think about how does that help me? Okay,
I was going to say there's going to be somebody out there listening going, well, hold on. I don't believe in this God stuff, but I still feel like that something needs to change here.
Yeah.
I need to somehow serve my spouse or change something because we're not getting along. We're just butting heads all day. What would you say to them?
That's great. I think as a quick aside, I would say the place where most wisdom of the world will give us the answer to that question. If I go down to Barnes & Noble, if I go down to Borders, the answers that I'm going to find are, the problem is in these two. So I need to either make my desires less, or she needs to become better at meeting my desires. And I think we need to acknowledge that that answer is broken and insufficient. So what would I say to someone who says, I'm not into this God thing? I hear you guys say that a lot. What I would say is, consider the bigger in your marriage. Consider what's going on behind the scenes in your own desires. And acknowledge, or let me not even say acknowledge, but consider, if I got everything I wanted, would I be a happy man? If my spouse were perfect, if my spouse really, really did everything that I'm looking for, I think if we're honest, even in a good season, we have to acknowledge that we're always looking for more.
Yeah, so, there's a reason there's a cliche, the grass is always greener on the other side. Because
Absolutely.
everybody, I mean, we're talking religious people and Christian, non-Christians, for millennia have noticed that you're never going to have enough,
That's
right?
it. That's great. That's well said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are hardwired to worship something.
Yeah, right.
And the default of the human heart is worship my own desires, get what I want.
Yeah, and there's an element of serving the other person, and I think anybody can kind of grasp, regardless of where they fall on the religion spectrum, they can grasp that concept saying, so I'm putting my needs aside, my desires, and trying to, serve this other person or be kind to this other, and that means that I have to just let my things go.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me what's interesting, particularly about Jesus and about Christianity, is he really is kind of the one religious figure that you can look at who is making the astonishing claim that I can break your idolatry. Absolutely. I can really break your slavery to this. Buddha can give you all the techniques and you can follow all of the paths, and it's still hard slogging and it's difficult. Jesus says it's not about you doing the slogging. I can really break this slavery to your own idolatry.
That's a great word. That's a great word. And to fill it in even more, he says, I can break your idolatry by giving you what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
Your heart will never be satisfied.
Yeah, St. Augustine, our hearts won't rest until they find our rest in the God who made us, right?
Amen.
So,
Amen.
Wow. Okay, so Jay has a marital issue.
Yeah.
Okay, we've really circled back. This has been great. I mean, we're really digging in, and like you said, we're pulling the extension cord. Now, Jay has a marital problem. He wants to go out, Jay, and or his friend wants to go out, and his wife doesn't want to. You're a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
Practically,
what do you
what
say?
do you do?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what has this Jesus that Brian just spoke about, what has Jesus to do with Jay's desire to go out to eat a lot? How does recognizing that Jesus has an agenda for you and for your relationship help you?
That one's going to require me a little more time to mull over than what we have for the show.
Maybe we should script this.
What better way to talk about this than picking a real life scenario?
I agree.
Real way to do it.
I agree.
Well, for brevity's sake, what would be your ideal response from me?
Yeah. Let's say this. Let's first think about the problem rightly. So it's not an anger problem. It's not a self-pity problem. But it's a problem with self-justification.
It's not a problem with my wife.
It's certainly not a problem with Molly or any of our spouses not delivering. In other words, our anger is never justified. Our sinful anger is never justified by
because
someone
their job is not to satisfy you. I mean, that's
exactly.
It's not the role.
She is not God, and we are making her out to be God in those situations. So to begin with, just getting to the heart of the matter, and that is, my own heart wants what it wants. That's why I'm angry. I want justification. I want comfort. I want what I want, and I want it now.
It's sort of like God, let there be light, bang!
Absolutely.
There it is. Isn't that what we want?
That is
I
precisely
want
what
to
we're
eat
aiming for.
out, bang! My word brings it into existence,
me
right?
what
And
I
we're searching
want.
for what
Yeah.
we want that's not Christ. And Christ is like, I am here now. I am here to give you what you really want.
So go on.
That's right. And because I am here, and because I am for you, you can be free from the bondage of demanding what you want when you want it. You can see your desires rightly as legitimate and yet not dominating.
Right.
Not ultimate. Legitimate, but not
That's
ultimate.
well said.
Right?
Absolutely. They are not ultimate. So I can ask the bigger questions. When I want to go out to eat, I can say, how do I glorify God? How do I honor my wife? How do I bring joy to my home? How does this contribute to the bigger picture in my relationship?
You know, I love that connection of taking who Christ is and what it means to be a believer and apply it to something as mundane and
right?
innocuous as going out to eat. I mean, I think there's a big division there. Like, we don't think as a culture, as humans, myself included, I mean, all three of us, we don't think deep enough about that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
No question.
And it doesn't mean moralizing what we do or anything, but it's just kind of
That was really
understanding and
deep and
thinking
profound
through.
analysis. I mean, think about that. I mean, you're right. We don't often connect the gospel message with really practical things like that.
true.
And of course, that's what you're doing in your work. I mean, that's what you've done in your doctoral work. Certainly, working with premarital situations, counseling people, right? In terms of what marriage is. And so, it's fun to do it on this show. Like, hey, this stuff is really
I was really
practical.
looking, as I was thinking
Yeah.
about this last night, going, and honestly, we prepped. I swear we prepped for the show. But I was like, what am I going to do for the show? We got to film this thing tomorrow. And I thought this is
Actually,
fun.
I'll tell you exactly what
My
happened. I think Jay said, I need some marital counseling. I'll call Jason and we'll do it on
No,
camera.
my wife and I have been talking through all this stuff quite a bit recently because it's, in an odd way, it's caused a little bit of contention in our household. I get cranky. She's like, I got kids. I'm stressed, and I'm like, but, and so we've been mulling over why she doesn't want to go out to eat, why I want to go out to eat a whole bat, and all this stuff. And I thought, well, this would be kind of a fun little topic for the show. So
it's a perfect example of a point that I try to make over and over again, and that is the real God meets us in real life. And it's these mundane circumstances, like should we go out to eat tonight or not, where he's at work.
Yeah. Wow.
He's at work in you, Jay,
Yeah.
and he's saying, I've got bigger plans for you. I've got bigger plans for you than your own selfish agenda. And it's right in the midst of those dinner decisions.
And what I love about that is that's a message, not a technique.
Amen.
What you just gave right there was good news.
Bit of news.
What you just gave is, you know what? There's a God who's really at work right now. That's news. That's not, here's your technique.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of the gospel right
And
there.
that's
Amen.
about as much time as we have for the show today.
Fantastic.
Jason, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
man.
on the show.
Great to be with you again.
That was fantastic.
Pastor, Rocky Mountain Community Church, Billings, Montana, www.rmccmontana.org. I'm Jay Friesen. This is Brian Mattson, Dead Reckoning TV, www.deadreckoning.tv. With that,
Signing off.
see ya.